So I grew up in Minnesota, the land of 10,000 lakes. And something you may not know is that there are actually more than 11,000 lakes. But Minnesotans don't like to say that because we don't want people to get overexcited. Something else you might not know is that growing up in Minnesota, schools would close on, or have like a half a day on the second Friday in May every year. And this is because it was opening of fishing season. And it was a big deal. And I loved it because every year I would go fishing with my dad. We'd take a trip up north and go fishing for opening weekend. And my parents were divorced, so I grew up with my mom and my two sisters, and I needed to get away from them, and he needed to get away from his girlfriends, and we'd spend time with a bunch of his friends out on the lake and in the woods and doing manly stuff, and I needed it. I needed to do it. And so in the spring of '81, I was 11, and I was very disappointed because my dad flaked on me. A business came up. I don't know what kind of business. But something came up, and I was disappointed. But he said he would make it up to me, and he would take me out of school for a couple of days just before Memorial Day, and just the two of us would go up to the lake. Just him and I fishing. It would be great. And I love that idea. I love that idea of just spending time with my dad alone. And my mom liked the idea. She liked the idea that I wasn't hanging around with his friends, who at best were bad influences. At worst, they were felons. Guys like Tim Lynch, he was really a Tasmanian devil disguised as a human being. Guy was just trouble. And so she was glad that I wasn't going to be spending time with them, but she was a little worried that I was getting my hopes up. She thought that Dad might flake on me. And so I'm waiting for him after school, and he's 10 minutes late, and he's 20 minutes late. But he shows up. He comes through. And he's a half hour late, but he's like, let's go, come on, get in the car, let's go. We're going up north. And we got the boat in tow, and we're heading up. It's just a father and son on a fishing trip, and we're speeding through these scenic wooded highways with the boat in tow. And he's got his foot on the gas pedal, and I've got my hand on the steering wheel holding it so he can snort lines of cocaine on the way up. And somehow we made the 4-hour trip in 2.5 hours, and we arrived at my grandparents' house. And these are not his parents; these are my mom's parents, and they're divorced. But he's still welcome in the house, and they still love him, and they don't trust him, but they love him. And he loves them, and he has great respect for my grandfather. So the next morning, when we're actually heading to the lake, and my grandfather gives us a warning, he actually takes the time to listen. My grandfather says, "Hey guys, if the weather gets rough, it might be dangerous out there. Just whatever you do, just be safe. Just be careful." John, you know me, I'm always careful. And we head up to the lake. And my grandfather was right to warn us because we're fishing Lake Winnebagosh, Big Winnie, which of the 11,000 lakes in Minnesota, one of the biggest and one of the most treacherous when the weather changes. Great fishing though. And when we get up there, it's beautiful that day, and the sun is shining, and the sky is blue, and you can smell pine. And I don't know if you've ever caught a walleye, but it's an amazing tactile experience and something you just won't forget. You cast out your line, and you feel the fish hit it, and you set the hook, and it goes this way, and you're reeling or this way, and it's exhilarating. It really is. And the great thing about walleyes, they're also delicious. And so there's a very strict limit. You can only catch 6 a day. That's the law. That's the rule. And so that first day, we actually catch our limit fairly quickly. And so we're done, in the afternoon. And Dad says, "You know what? Let's not go back into town. Let's camp." Great. That's a great idea. And so we pulled the boat up to the beach near a campground, and there are a couple of his friends. It's Tim Lynch and Mark the Mute, who never said anything, but that's okay, because I really didn't want to know what that guy was thinking. The whole thing, Tim Lynch has his shoulder bag with, his drugs and money, and he never let go of it, and he wouldn't leave it in the car, wouldn't leave it in the boat, I always had it with him. And the whole thing was some half-ass drug deal that they couldn't do down in Minneapolis. They had to get away. And it's not just me and my dad. It's me and my dad and these two other guys. And disappointing, but hey, we're still camping, we're still fishing, and we're still eating fish. And it was a great time that night. We're camping and playing cards, and Mark the Mute's not saying anything. And I didn't even mind it when the weather changed and it started to rain and get a little nasty. But it was fun. And the next morning when we go fishing, it was good, except the fishing wasn't great. And my dad and Tim Lynch were getting paranoid. There's a plane flying over the lake, like a search plane, like looking for something. And they think, oh my God, is that plane? Are they looking for us? And my dad knows of a little cove, and so we take the boat over in the cove, which they love because it's hidden and they can do whatever they want. And I love because the fishing is just amazing. I'm just fishing one after another, pulling these fish out of the lake. And with 4 people in the boat, I figured we can catch 24 fish. This is going to be awesome. And eventually, I'm literally catching fish left and right because I'm using 2 different poles and I'm using the net and Dad and Tim Lynch are doing their thing, and Mark the Mute's not saying anything, and the plane is still flying over the lake. And eventually, I know it's illegal, but we were over our limit. And I know it's illegal, but it felt so good to catch all these fish. And we have over 40 fish. And I personally caught like over 30 of them. And my dad decides it's time to head in. So we pull the boat in at the landing. And a bunch of people up there. And there's somebody on the dock waving. He's waving to us. Grandpa? Hey. And standing next to my grandfather is a Cass County Sheriff's deputy. And he's on a walkie-talkie, probably to the plane circling the lake, and the 2 squad cars behind him. Oh, fuck, says Mark the Mute. Only thing he said the whole trip. And Tim Lynch clutches his little magic bag. And these guys are worried. I can tell my dad is worried, and I am worried because we have so many fish. I am in serious trouble. We have 40 fish. This is going to go on my permanent record. I might not get into college because these fucking fish. And I look at my dad, and I can tell he's thinking of just spinning the boat around and making a run for it. But where's he going to go? And he decides, let's pull the boat in. Let's face the music. And I can tell that what's really bothering him, it's not the drugs and it's not the fish, he let down my grandfather. And I can see the wheels turning, and I can see he's going to try to work his way out of this. He's going to try to use that used car salesman charm and get out of it. And I don't even give him the chance to fuck this up. As soon as the boat pulled in, I hop out and I run to my grandfather, give him a big hug, and he was so grateful that we were safe. And my dad knew he fucked up. He didn't tell them that we were camping. It was all part of his plan. They thought we were going to be there, but we didn't show up. And then the weather turned, and they got worried and called the police, called the sheriffs. And so they're flying over the lake looking for a father and son fishing in a boat, not a father and son and 2 assholes. So they didn't find us. But my grandfather was so happy we were safe. And Grandpa, it was my fault. We were fishing last night, and it was so good. The fishing was so good. I wanted to stay out, and I wanted to camp. I did it. And he gave a stern look to my dad and kind of tousled my hair and looked at the deputy, who shrugged and said something on walkie-talkie to call off the plane. And it felt like all was forgiven. And I looked at my dad. He's quiet. And I look at Tim Lynch and Mark the Mute, and they're gone. I don't know. I honestly don't know where they may still be swimming in Lake Minnewagosh. It was not the last time those guys would cross paths with me, but that was the last fishing trip I ever took with my dad. And I think because I was getting older and I may have grown out of it. And also the following February he went to rehab and cleaned up his act. And I think he may have found fishing so boring that he needed all that cocaine to get through it. He died a few years later. He had a massive coronary. age 36. Just years, years of abuse. I know he was a fuck up. But we had a lot of fun. And so I think of him when I'm on the lake with my kids. We head up to Minnesota every summer. And they're old enough to fish now, but we never catch more than our limit.